Well, it's the 20th anniversary, birthday in fact, or Earth Day if you like, of Groundswell, the homeless healthcare charity. And we've come to a really nice place, the Arch, to have a chat and hopefully get some more information about what Groundswell is about.
Well, I think it looks great because people are having a good time and lots of people have turned up. And people that I know and I haven't seen for a little while, they're here, and it's really good to make contact again.
Just delighted to see the exhibitions, catch up with people I haven't seen in a long time, and celebrate what's a remarkable kind of story of supporting homeless people across the UK.
We've done a collaboration with the Museum of Homelessness, which is a newly formed organisation who want to tell the story of homelessness through the eyes of homeless people.
Do you get any privilege in this?
I'm here as a funder. We support the Museum of Homelessness, who have been involved in supporting Groundswell members to identify items from the Groundswell archive to put on show today.
Yeah, Matt and Jess from the Museum of Homelessness have designed the whole process. They've sort of trained and supported a team of our volunteers, people from the whole range that have contributed to Groundswell over the past 20 years.
I've been a volunteer with Groundswell for 18 years out of the 20. And looking round the room today, I can actually see why I became a volunteer. I haven't always got it right, but Groundswell and Jules have always been there to pick me up and put me back on track.
Some people from the middle years and some of our current volunteers, and they've helped sort of, done some tricks and tips and techniques to get them to sort of share their stories and their experiences of Groundswell.
We've been working with Groundswell over the last 6 weeks or so to pull together the exhibition, exploring the history of Groundswell over the 20 years and working with the archive items and Groundswell volunteers to make the show.
What we're going to talk about?
Well, I don't know, let's see what they ask us. Come here. Don't be scared, they won't bite. Jimmy, yeah.
We work quite closely with Jimmy Carlson-Obi, who is really the knowledge holder for Groundswell's history in many ways, although there are many people who were involved. And so we had several development meetings in the early part of the year, and we hit upon the 3 eras which you see in the show, which is Era 1, which is from 96 to 2002, which is really very much where Groundswell were involved in direct action and activism.
Okay, well, I was director of the organisation which was called CHAR, which stands for Campaign for Homeless and Rootless. And that was the organisation that basically brought Groundswell into existence.
As time went on, we decided we wanted to run a project which would really have homeless single people as centre stage. Yeah?
Well, it all started when I was at CHAR, and I was approached by a guy called Mike Connolly, who actually had another name, James Nelson. He'd written a book called No More Walls because he'd spent quite a lot of time in psychiatric hospitals and had a pretty rough time. He'd been funded to go to the States on a study visit, and he'd come back full of enthusiasm, yeah. And he got this idea of running a conference called to promote something called the Partnership Coalition of Homelessness, you see, which was pretty ambitious really, because it was about, a coalition between the homeless people in the USA and in England. And I thought, oh God, this is a conference without any attendees and no funding. What are we going to do? So, but we had to do something. And in the end, what we did was we sort of called it a speak out. It took place on the same day, 31st of October 1992, at Lambeth Mission, not far away from here. We got Cardboard Citizens. Anyone here from Cardboard Citizens? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hooray! And the thing I think that made it really special was that we involved a theatre group called Cardboard Citizens, which is a theatre group which involves homeless people, yeah. Speak Outs became one of the sort of things which Groundswell regularly did with homeless people, as a sort of provide a platform for people to articulate their views, their needs, their analysis of where they were at and what needed to be done. Anyway, that was the first Speak Out, and that was also one of the sort of drivers behind doing this sort of thing.
Well, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have now been sober 14 years.
I spent 23 years sleeping on the streets.
Yeah, because I've been homeless myself.
Within that 23 years, I was in and out of hostels, in and out of prison, in and out of mental institutions, all through my drinking.
Marmite factory.
The Marmite factory, where actually our office is now.
So I was living in Hackney. I suppose I was living in a squat. I was in the squat cafe one day, and someone came up to me and said there's this great thing in Sheffield with an organisation called Groundswell. I'd never heard of Groundswell, but he said I could have free accommodation for the weekend, and there'd be food, and there'd be a little scene. And he's like, and I'll take you there in my car. And I was like, shit, all right, yeah, go on.
There wasn't anyone who worked for Groundswell then, no one had a car.
So we went up to Sheffield, and I suppose that was my first experience of Groundswell.
The project that I was involved in for my recovery, ARP, Alcohol Recovery Project, we applied for a Groundswell grant.
Was it our first grants, wasn't it? The
Yeah.
first grants we made.
We were awarded £500 to set a user group up within the project. And out of that, we were invited to the Tibet building, where an exchange was going on with people from India and South Africa. And I met these 4 amazing people. They were heading off to the 97 or 98 Groundswell? 97 Forum.
Yeah.
And I said to a mate of mine that we've got to go to this forum because I've got to meet these people again. And we did. We actually went for the last day of the forum, met these people again, and it more or less just took off from there.
It was kind of cute. There was like a field, and there was like tents and yurts, and people earnestly speaking about stuff and all different aspects of homelessness. I mainly sort of hung out with the DIY people who were talking about sort of the land is ours and different kind of campaigns.
There's a lot of hidden talent out there, and really, like there's some clients who I've worked with is now peers for Groundswell.
Then 3 years later I heard about the grant scheme, so I got one of their first awards to set up a small organisation which turned into a registered charity eventually.
And then the kind of maturing stage through to 2010, which is Era 2, which saw them influence, and client involvement became a really big thing.
Groundswell is about individuals achieving paths out of homelessness themselves, and that's a very good idea.
And I like the sort of founding concept, that you can't solve homelessness without having homeless people at the centre of any solutions to homelessness, so I very much agree with that.
Often the kind of solutions that you're offered by the professionals are not necessarily the kind of solutions you might wish for yourself.
You know what I mean? So it's a really nice buzz to see him from the street, getting to a hostel, doing some volunteer work, and even working and got their own flats. It's a fantastic buzz.
Volunteering gave me my self-respect back. Give me my self-respect, my confidence, and my self-esteem.
It's helped me to keep sober as well, by helping other people who's got addictions.
And so we work with the group to tease out really important moments in Groundswell's history.
So I ran Groundswell between 2004 and 2006.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the first ever big involvement project that sort of brought together training and research with some mungos, lots of mungos people here? Groundswell kind of ran out of money at the point that I came in, so
in terms of money, it was like almost from a zero base. So Athol did most of the fundraising actually. I did most of the kind of trying to like schmooze people.
It was an organisation that was teetering on the brink of failure probably a decade ago.
It was possibly the most stressful 2 years of my entire life. so much weight. I think I weighed about 6.5 stone at one point. My role was about moving us from saying there needed to be involvement to helping organisations do involvement. So we did St Mungo's and helped set up their involvement group outside in, which is still going. And then we did some work for the DCLG, which I always forget what it stands for, but helping them review their Supporting People programme.
And finally to where we are today with Groundswell, which is their work around health, amongst several other things, and a lot of the awards that they've received. Those are just some of the kind of high points.
I run a charity called Vital Regeneration. I'd looked at their health advocacy programme through a contact of the Young Foundation, and they said, look, phone the guy, Athol, phone him up, he's a really nice guy, he'll tell you all about it.
We kind of took stock at some point and realised that one of the main issues that was coming up, that was high on the agendas of homeless people but low on the agenda of homelessness services, was health.
And it's so important. A lot of our guys that we work with, they're knocking on death's door, you know, and they're scared.
And we designed a little pilot project in one borough in London called Homeless Health Peer Advocacy, which was about involving people with experience of homelessness to be the ones to help overcome those barriers.
Apparently HHPA is still sometimes referred to as TTTDD, that thing that Dennis does. So I'd like to ask Dennis to come up.
Well, I was in the first intake of Groundswell in 2010, so there were 6 of us, and I didn't actually think I passed the interview. And then that day I got a telephone call saying that they want me to join them, so I joined them. The training was fantastic. Couldn't wait to get out there, but as time was getting on nearer to the time of getting out, I had doubts in myself saying, oh, could I actually do this?
So it was all about sort of saying, well, people were getting letters for appointments to addresses where they weren't at, so people weren't even knowing that they had appointments, and then if they did know where their appointment was, it was off on the other side of town, they didn't have the travel to get there, and then sometimes people did get the letter, they did have to travel, they were struggling to get past either security or receptionists because they just weren't communicating well.
You know, I've been homeless myself. I know what it's like going into a hospital, or admittedly, sometimes I'm in there to sleep because it was cold, you know what I mean, and the hassle that homeless people get, you know what I mean.
Pick people up, remind them of when their appointment is, guide them through public transport, pay their fares, get people past security, past receptionists, into the appointment, and then where needed, help communicate the needs that were going on and help advocate sometimes so that people get the right treatment, get people home safely and make sure that they can then follow through courses of treatment.
I'm shortly going to lead us in a minute's silence to remember and to honour those people who are no longer with us. All those people who have died on our streets. All those people that our peers have supported to their health appointments, knowing that in some cases we are not starting people on a path to independence, but rather we are accompanying people on their final steps in life, where all we can do is to try to support people to die with dignity. I will read a list of names and then I will ask you to join me in a minute's silence. I will then break that silence by leading a round of applause.
I think I forget how the rough and readiness of a Groundswell event.
Working with Groundswell has been a really amazing experience because their ethos, which is around homeless people being the solution, not the problem, really chimes with our own.
You know, Groundswell is like a family. You know, like, you know, if anyone's got an issue, all we got to do is speak to someone and hopefully things get sorted.
Well, the impact that Jimmy's had through Groundswell is staggering. He's inspired and supported and encouraged more people to do something, professionals to find new ways of working to involve homeless people more effectively, the homeless people believing that they can have a say.
Yeah.
The impact it's had throughout the UK is just second to none, and you know, as recognised by the Queen downwards. I mean, Groundswell inspired him, and he has taken it on with a passion to inspire others.
It's been brilliant. And happy birthday, Groundswell.